Dan, appreciate that. Before the president's announcement, we want to get to other news. Major developments in the court today for the trial of Florida Neighborhood Watch volunteer George Zimmerman. An all-female jury will decide Zimmerman's fate. Opening statements will be Monday in the second-degree murder trial. Going to be Monday, 9 a.m. 9 a.m. Eastern time. But today, two major rulings to tell you about. One being what words can and cannot be used by the prosecution while trying Zimmerman. And two, whether prosecutors can play a 911 tape in court from the night Trayvon Martin was shot and killed. You remember Zimmerman says he fired at Martin in self-defense in February of last year. The sound of that gunshot was heard on a 911 tape the prosecution wants to use. They want an expert to analyze just who was screaming. The defense says it was Zimmerman. The prosecution says it was Trayvon Martin. Take a listen.
Does he look hurt to you?
I can't see him. I don't want to go out there. I don't know what's going on. So they're sending him.
So you think he's yelling help?
Yes.
All right, what is your...
Okay, criminal defense attorney and our CNN legal analyst Mark NeJame joins me now. And Mark, I want to tell you, if the president comes out, we're going to have to interrupt this interview, okay? Just fair warning.
I understand that.
Okay.
Of course.
What will it mean for the
before.
Yeah, what will it mean for prosecutors if they can't play this tape in court?
It's a terrible thing for them. This tape, and who is the one screaming for help me, is in fact a cornerstone of the state's case. And without it, an already challenging case becomes even worse. The issue is that whoever is screaming help me, or words to that effect, is the person who is presumptively the person who's on the bottom, the person that is the one who's a victim, and the other person is the aggressor. So with that, if they cannot establish that it's if they cannot establish that it's Trayvon Martin, well then you've got reasonable doubt for a jury, and you don't have any proof that in fact it was Trayvon Martin who was the one who was being victimized. It's a critical issue, and I think the judge realizes that, and this is a judge who's made some very rapid decisions, well thought out, well prepared.
We got to go to the president now, Mark. All right, so before the president came out, we were talking about the George Zimmerman trial down in Florida. A six-member jury already been impaneled, all women. I was speaking with criminal defense attorney and CNN legal analyst Mark NeJame. So, Mark, let's talk about the series of words the judge will and won't allow. Okay, so the state can argue that Mr. Zimmerman confronted Trayvon Martin. The state can also use these phrases: vigilante, self-appointed neighborhood watch captain, and wannabe cop. Okay, what they can't say, the state may not say that Zimmerman was racially profiling. So, Mark, how important is being allowed to use confronted Trayvon Martin to this case? And then profiling, they can say profiling, but they just can't say racially profiling.
Right. I think the judge made some pretty sound, good legal decisions today. Basically, she's saying to the state, you can go ahead and say that he was confronted, but you're going to have to prove it. So the state can bring it up and say that Trayvon Martin was confronted by George Zimmerman, because that's the theory of their case. They believe that George Zimmerman went ahead and saw Trayvon Martin and initiated the confrontation. Well, if they're going to claim that, they're going to have to prove it. So it can be a double-edged sword for the state. They're allowed to bring it up, and I think they well should. But if they don't prove it, they're going to be having egg on their face when it comes to the jury, and you're going to surely hear the defense at closing arguments say, they promised you this and they didn't deliver. So I think that the judge was real clear. I think it's appropriate, but the state's got the burden. And with that said, you now have got a situation where the racial issue, you know, when all this started, the state surely suggested that this was a racially profiled case. They seem to have backpedaled on that. So now the issue is that they can talk about profiling, but the racial aspect is one issue amongst many on the profiling. How maybe Trayvon Martin was dressed, how he was walking in rain by himself that night, his youth. All those things are simply the whole composite of the profiling, but purely racial profiling, it's not going to be permitted, and it's not going to be the way the state is proceeding.
And this all starts Monday, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Mark NeJame, thank you, and we appreciate you waiting for the president.
My pleasure.
All right, have a great weekend. Still ahead here.